In March 2016, a room full of the world's best Go players fell completely silent. On the screen in front of them, an artificial intelligence had just made a move that no human being would ever have thought of. A move so strange, so counterintuitive, that even the experts needed several minutes just to process what they were watching. The world's greatest Go player, Lee Sedol, stared at the board and stood up from his seat. He needed air. He needed to think. He needed to accept that everything he knew about the game, everything humanity had built over 500 years of play, had just been quietly dismantled by a machine built in a London office. This is not just a story about artificial intelligence. This is the story of three people who believed they could solve human intelligence itself, built a company from scratch, sold it for $500 million, and then changed what the world thought was possible. Three people and one audacious idea. In 2010, a neuroscientist, a machine learning theorist, and a social entrepreneur walked into a small London office and decided they were going to crack one of the oldest problems in science. Their names were Demis Hassabis, Shane Legg and Mostafa Suleiman. On paper, none of them seemed like the type to build one of the most powerful AI research labs in history. Hassabis had been a child chess prodigy, ranked as one of the best players under 14 in the world, before pivoting to game design and then neuroscience. Legg had spent years studying how intelligence itself emerges. Suleiman had come from a background in conflict resolution and social policy. Together, they formed a team that was as unusual as the idea they were chasing. Their founding thesis was deceptively simple: build algorithms that can learn anything, not just one thing. Every major AI system before DeepMind was trained for a single narrow task. IBM's Deep Blue, which famously defeated chess champion Garry Kasparov in 1997, was brilliant at chess and absolutely useless at everything else. DeepMind wanted to build something fundamentally different, a system that could absorb raw experience and figure things out for itself, across any domain. To prove their theory, they started with games. Old Atari video games from the 1970s and 80s became their testing ground. They fed their system raw pixels, gave it a score to optimize, and watched it teach itself to play. No rules, no instructions, just trial, error, and reinforcement learning. The results were extraordinary. Word spread fast in the technology world. By early 2014, Google had seen enough. The company acquired DeepMind for approximately $500 million, its largest European acquisition at the time. It was a staggering price tag for a lab that had never launched a consumer product, had no revenue model, and employed fewer people than a mid-sized restaurant. But Google was not buying a product, it was buying a vision, a team, and a set of ideas that executives believed could define the next decade of technology. As part of the deal, DeepMind maintained significant operational independence and established one of the first AI ethics boards in the industry, an early signal that Hassabis understood the weight of what his team was building. The challenge of Go and the making of AlphaGo. With Google's resources behind them, DeepMind set its sights on the most formidable challenge in the history of AI research, the game of Go. Chess had fallen to machines in 1997. Checkers had been solved even earlier, but Go had resisted every attempt for decades. The reason came down to sheer complexity. A standard chessboard has roughly 20 possible moves at any given moment. A Go board has closer to 200. The total number of possible board configurations in Go exceeds 10 to the power of 170, more than the number of atoms in the known observable universe. Traditional AI methods, which worked by calculating every possible future move and selecting the best one, simply could not function at that scale. Go also demanded something that computers had historically lacked entirely: intuition. The world's best human players often described making decisions by feel, by a kind of aesthetic sense that a move was right before they could explain why. The AlphaGo research project formally began around 2014, led by researcher David Silver and the broader DeepMind team. Their approach combined two powerful techniques. First, they trained deep neural networks on more than 30 million moves pulled from expert human games, teaching the system to recognize patterns the way a student learns from watching a master. Then came the second, more radical step. They made AlphaGo play against itself, thousands of times, then hundreds of thousands of times, each iteration learning from its mistakes through reinforcement learning. Over time, AlphaGo stopped playing like a human and started playing like something else entirely. In October 2015, DeepMind made its first public move. AlphaGo played Fan Hui, the reigning European Go champion, and won 5-0. It was the first time in history that a computer program had defeated a professional human Go player in a match without any handicap. The Go community noticed, but many professionals remained skeptical. Fan Hui was a strong player, but he was ranked only at the 2-dan professional level. The true test of AlphaGo's strength, they argued, would come against the game's genuine legends. That test came in March 2016. Lee Sedol, winner of 18 World Championship titles and widely regarded as the greatest Go player of his generation, sat down against AlphaGo in Seoul, South Korea. Before the match began, Sedol told reporters he expected to win. He was not being arrogant. He was being honest. Even many AI researchers at the time privately believed Sedol would prevail. Instead, over 5 games broadcast to an audience of more than 200 million people worldwide, AlphaGo won 4-1. The scientific and cultural impact was immediate and enormous, but within those 5 games lived a single moment that transcended the result entirely. Move 37, AlphaFall, and the long game DeepMind was always playing. Halfway through Game 2, AlphaGo placed a stone in a position that made the commentators pause mid-sentence. The move, which became known simply as Move 37, had a calculated probability of roughly 1 in 10,000. No human player, trained in centuries of Go theory and tradition, would have chosen it. It looked wrong. It looked like a mistake. It was in fact a stroke of creative genius that turned the game decisively in AlphaGo's favor. Fan Hui, watching from the audience, later described the moment by saying it had changed his understanding of the game forever. What AlphaGo demonstrated was not just computational speed or memory. It demonstrated that a machine, given enough self-directed practice, could generate ideas that humanity had never conceived across thousands of years of collective effort. The business and scientific implications unfolded rapidly. DeepMind received 142 published news mentions in 2016 alone, a staggering level of public visibility for a research lab. AlphaGo earned the highest possible professional ranking in Go, the 9-dan certification, the first computer program ever to receive it. Internally, Hasubis saw something bigger than a board game victory. Standing backstage in Seoul with David Silver after AlphaGo's win, he told Silver simply now is the time. The reinforcement learning techniques and neural network architectures that powered AlphaGo were not just tools for playing games. They were templates for solving some of the hardest problems in science. In 2020, DeepMind released AlphaFold, a system that used the same foundational ideas to solve protein folding, a problem that had resisted biologists for 50 years. Proteins determine almost every function in the human body, and predicting their 3-dimensional structure from a genetic sequence had been considered one of the grand challenges of modern biology. AlphaFold solved it with an accuracy that matched experimental lab methods, compressing what could take years of research into days. The scientific community described it as one of the most important breakthroughs in the history of biology. DeepMind made the data freely available to researchers worldwide. In 2023, after more than a decade as one of the world's leading AI research labs, DeepMind merged with Google Brain to form Google DeepMind, a unified unit led by Hasubis, combining the 2 most powerful AI research teams inside Alphabet. The story of DeepMind and AlphaGo is ultimately a story about what happens when a small group of people refuse to accept the limits that history has drawn around human and machine intelligence. 3 founders in a London office, a $500 million acquisition, a board game that had never been solved, a move with a 1 in 10,000 chance of being played, and a company that used all of it to accelerate science in ways that will shape medicine, technology, and human knowledge for generations to come. What Demis Hassabis built was never really about winning at Go. It was always about something much larger. And the world, move by move, is only now beginning to understand just how far ahead he was thinking.